Good morning. It's Monday morning, May the 18th, Mountain Daylight Time in Spanish Fork, Utah. We're in the Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter, 11th verse, which is a very famous verse, often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. So first, let's acknowledge our indebtedness to him by offering the Guru prayers. Om Agana Timarandasya Ganagana Sadakya Chaksurun Miritam Yena Tajmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutare Swayam Rupakaramayam Darati Swa Parantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagadaram Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishikhan Vitam Scha Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pustaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sanyavadi Praskata Desatadine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. Good morning, Paki, Sundari Priya, Joe. It's Monday morning, May the 18th, and we're in the second chapter, first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Very famous verse. Prabhupada quoted this over and over and over again. Vedanti tat tat bambidas tat bam yajganam ramiti paramadmiti bhagavan iti sabdyate. Learned transcendentalists know the absolute truth call the non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. And Prabhupada writes in the purport here, the absolute truth is both subject and object, and there's no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the sun rays are to the sun god. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun's surface is further advanced, and one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization, but those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspectives seen from the different angles of vision. All students who are engaged in the study of the absolute truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disk, and the inner affairs of the sun planet cannot be separated from one another. And yet the students of the three different phases are not in the same category. David, Mala, good morning. Coincidentally, this is also the appearance day of Vrindavan Das Thakur. Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote the Chaitanya Bhagavat, which chronicles the childhood pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, Lord Chaitanya is an incarnation of Krishna in a devotional garb. So there's, just like the theme of this verse is that Lord Chaitanya and Krishna are the same, and they're also different. They're similar, they're one and the same, and they're also different. And so Vrindavan Das Thakur, he wrote about the childhood pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's considered to be the counterpart or the incarnation of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva wrote about the childhood pastimes of Krishna in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote about the childhood pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, and there are many similarities, obviously. Of all the pastimes of Krishna, he was on the planet for 125 years, the 90th year of which he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. But the most enchanting and attractive and most often praised, celebrated, written about, and portrayed in dance and poetry are the childhood pastimes of Krishna. I remember many years ago, my wife and I visited Cochin. There's a time in January annually where they have a huge cultural festival for a week's time. And at any given time, there are cultural events, Kathakali, sitar, veena presentations, poetry, going on at least 5 or 6 different stages somewhere throughout the city. But the biggest venue was right on the beach there. They had a huge tent, which would accommodate at least 5,000 people. And on the weekend, which was a big time, they had kuchipudi competition between boys and girls, and these are all high school seniors graduating. Most of them would never dance again. This is their last chance. And they had judges from All India Radio, Doordarshan, AA rated dancers themselves, judging the kids. And there were certain required elements in their dance. They had to, the kuchipudi is characterized by holding a plate on your head and dancing on a plate. But one thing they had to do is they had to portray a Krishna or a Vishnu pastime. So as we sat there, the competition lasted well into the early hours of Sunday morning. It started from 10 to 1, they had the boys, there was a break for lunch, and then from 2 till, midnight, they had the girls. Each girl had a number, and they got judged according to the quality of their performance. But it was interesting as I sat there and watched one performer after another come. 90% of the presentations were about the childhood pastimes of Krishna. Very few were about Vishnu, very few were about the latter Leelas of Krishna in Dwarka or Kurukshetra. So many of them had to do with baby Krishna in Vrindavan in the first 12 years of his life. And so that's what's the most enchanting and the most attractive. Similarly, with Lord Chaitanya, no difference. And one of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya was that he sat amongst the pots, where the pots were in a semi-dissolved state. People would eat off of clay pots with banana leaves, and everything is recyclable, everything is biodegradable, so it's all thrown somewhere where it can compost, go back to earth. It comes from earth, takes the shape of pots, banana leaves, and then it goes back to earth. So Lord Chaitanya is a child sitting there eating earth. And Mother Yashoda said, "What are you doing?" And he spoke like the monists, like the impersonalists. He said, well, everything comes from earth, it appears in different varieties, and it goes back to earth, so the reality of everything is that it's earth. This is what the Buddhists say. Prabhupada says that impersonalism is modified Buddhism, in fact. So Mother Yashoda spoke the proper philosophy. She said, yes, it's one, the dirt and the earth and the subjis and the curries and the halvas and the pakoras and the samosas and all those things that we make. It's true in one sense to say that it's all one, it's all from earth, but the earth presents itself in such a way as it's utilized for different purposes. And so therefore, although everything's one, you have to also be able to discriminate and to distinguish categories amongst the oneness. So Prabhupada starts off this purport by saying the non-dual substance is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. It would seem to be a contradiction, because if it's non-dual, and then in the next breath you talk about 3 different categories, from a relative materialistic point of view, that just wouldn't make any sense. But we're dealing with the absolute truth here, and the absolute truth is inconceivably simultaneously one with and different from the material creation from itself. So therefore, the absolute truth, which is one qualitatively, is divided into 3 categories, from Bhagavan, Paramatma, and Brahman. And Prabhupada says sometimes less intelligent students take their own field of study as supreme or as all in all. Although those who study Brahman are considered preliminary students, oftentimes they presume that theirs is the supreme subject matter, theirs is the supreme science, and they view bhakti, the personal service to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, as a kind of an inferior engagement, or even as a karma kanda type activity where you worship the form of the Lord in order to get some material benefits. Of course, that is not only far from the truth, but it's quite offensive, in fact, too. So Lord Chaitanya was drawing out from his mother the eternal truth that although everything is one, everything is basically Brahman, it's spirit, it is broken down into various categories. And so Prabhupada continues here. A devotee knows there is oneness in diversity. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mata paratam yat kinchid janastin janandaya maitadamidam sarvam sutre managana iva. He says, matam parataram nanya. There is nothing higher than me. In other words, I am the one, and everything else that exists is a category of me. See what I'm saying? So Krishna is all and everything, and then whatever there is Krishna. It's a category of Krishna. The example is given that you have the sun god, his name is Vivaswan, and he presides over what we know as a heavenly planet called the sun. Then you have the surface of the sun, you have the sun globe itself, and then you have the sunshine. So all three categories are one. It all has to do with the sun, the science of the sun, light and heat. But at the same time, they're not all the same. The one is not the other. In fact, if you just study the sunshine, you miss the other two aspects, which are higher. If you just think that the sunshine appears out of nothing, it comes from nowhere, you don't acknowledge any source of it, you're not aware of it, that is very neophyte, is very immature. Prabhupada gave the example, the child sees the airplane in the air and just think it just appeared there. Doesn't figure that it was manufactured, it took off from one airport, it's going to land at its destination, another airport. All the child figures is it's just there. So those who study Brahman and relegate Brahman to be the be-all and end-all are in a preliminary stage, and they miss out on the higher levels of realization. Higher than the sunshine is the sun globe. You have to apply the law of cause and effect and identify the sun globe, the surface of the sun, as the source of the sunshine. So then your knowledge is a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit more complete. However, your knowledge is not perfectly complete until you acknowledge that presiding over this planet is a personality, a deity, who's called Surya Narayan or Vivaswan. Now, you can know the sunshine without knowing the sun disk or the sun god. You can know the sun disk, and that includes knowledge of the sunshine, but it excludes knowledge of the sun god. However, once you are aware of the sun god, Vivaswan, then that includes knowledge of the sun globe, and it also includes knowledge of the sunshine. So they are simultaneously one, and at the same time, they're different categories. Another example, Prabhupada told a story once that prior to the British, there were no trains in India, and the British made a huge effort to crisscross and network all the different parts of India with railroad tracks and trains. Someone said their motivation was to get everyone to go into the cities, to participate in the industrialization of India. But be that as it may, imagine a village where they had never seen a train before. There was tracks had been laid some miles away, and information was given to them that at twilight, just after dark on a certain day, the first train is going to come down the track. And so the villagers dedicated one representative to travel to this juncture where the railroad track was, and to actually three villagers, he delegated 3 members of the village to go, and then to report on what they saw. So sometime after the train was to have passed that place, the villagers all were gathered, and the first member came back, just the one. The other 2 had lingered a little bit longer, and the first member came back and he said, the train is a light. That's what the train is, it's a light. And then the second member came back, and he came back and he said, the train is a snake with a light in front of it, because he stayed long enough to be able to discern in the dimness and the darkness that behind the light there was kind of a wiggling, crooked form following the light. And so he characterized the train as a light followed by a snake. And then sometime later, the last villager checked in, and he said, yeah, there's a light and it wiggles like a snake, but actually there are cars, there's a locomotive which has a light on the front, so it can detect anything that's on the track as an obstruction. There are engineers, there's a furnace there. They're feeding coal into the furnace, and that makes fire, and that gives energy to pull the train. And then there are cars, and some of the cars are for cargo, and they don't have any windows, and some of the cars are for passengers, and they have windows. And inside they're sitting in plush upholstered seats, and there's luggage racks upstairs. So who had the most complete knowledge? Obviously the third villager. And whereas the villager who only described the train as a light, he missed out on the cars which followed behind the light. He missed out on that aspect of knowledge. And the one that stayed a little longer and saw the cars behind the light, he missed out on knowing the purpose of the locomotive, the purpose of the cargo cars, the purpose of the passenger cars. And so each one of them was describing the train, and in that sense there was a oneness there. You see, it was a non-dualness there. But what's really most important about the train is the categories, the locomotive, the passengers, the cargo, the engineers, the furnace. What's really important are the detailed descriptions of the train. That's the only thing that's really going to do you any good as well. So Krishna says here in the Bhagavad Gita, Icha Dvesha Samutena, 7th chapter, 27th verse, Dvandva Mohena Bharata, Sarva Bhutani Samaham, Sargiyanti Parantapa. O Scion of Bharat, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arising from desire and hate. Krishna's energies are different from him. Initially, the living entity characteristically coming into this material world, he wants to be sovereign. He wants to be the Lord of all he surveys. He sees this energy of the Lord's, which shimmers with attractivity. Devi Hiya Gunamayi. This energy, this material energy, is described as an inferior energy because it's temporary. It's not false, but it's temporary. The Mayavadis, the impersonalists, would discount this phenomenal world altogether. They would say, like baby Lord Chaitanya, that it comes from Brahman and it goes back to Brahman. So whatever is manifest, whatever is phenomenal right now, that's not the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is it's Brahman or it's spirit. And so therefore, any distinctions that we make or any designations that we attach to phenomena are Maya or illusion. And that's why another name of the monists is called Mayavadis. They discount the varieties in this material world. However, the fact is that this energy comes from Krishna, it comes from Bhagavan. It does not just manifest itself unilaterally or independently. And because Krishna is all attractive, the energy itself is very attractive. Even though it's inferior, because it has a source of God, the all-attractive Madan Mohan Mahini, the living beings are attracted, and so they desire to supplant, to usurp the position of God, and to enjoy as God would enjoy. Of course, this isn't the real world. It's just like a play world set aside for those living beings who want to live independently of God. But nevertheless, because we are parts and parcels of God, and he is the supreme enjoyer, we also have the enjoying spirit. But rather than enjoying or exercising that enjoying spirit by serving the Lord in our proper position, we misuse that independent spirit by trying to act as independent little potentates in this material world. And so initially, our position vis-a-vis this material world is that we want to enjoy it. We desire it. We want to own it. And in that connection, the false ego raises its ugly head. I want to possess. Janasha maham mahamaham mameti. The materialists, those who desire to appropriate the energies of God as their own, they always speak in terms of I and mine. So that's the false ego, and that's false proprietorship, like that. However, because this energy itself is temporary, you cannot get permanent satisfaction from it. When you aspire to own and to enjoy something, there are really only three outcomes. One is that you don't get it, and so therefore you're frustrated and angry. The other is that you get it and then you lose it, which also leads to frustration and anger. And the other is that you get it and you keep it, and it just loses its luster. After a while, you get sick of it, you know. Junkyards are full of items that people once just had to have. They jeopardize marriages, they jeopardize relationships in order to get that object. And now it's just sitting, gathering rust among weeds in a junkyard somewhere. So being frustrated at trying to enjoy the material energy because it's temporary, the living being comes to a point where then he hates it. First he desires it, and then being frustrated, then he wants to reject it. He wants to discount it. He wants to deny it. And this is the position of the monist. Basically, the monist is someone who's frustrated in their previous desire to enjoy the material world. That was a criminal mentality, and how that criminal mentality evolves is that being frustrated and angry about desiring to enjoy this material world, then one wants to reject it. So this is called Icha Dvesha Samutena Dvandva Mohinabad. It's the dualities of desire and hate. You desire it, and then when you're frustrated, you hate it. The fox wanted to enjoy the grapes, which were hanging some distance above the ground. He jumped up to try and grab them. He jumped up to try and grab them, jumped up, and he couldn't quite jump up high enough in order to grab the grapes. And so being frustrated in his effort to enjoy the grapes, he walked away and kind of looked over his shoulder and said, the grapes are probably sour anyway. Now, Prabhupada says here, the desire to see everything as one and to reject or renounce this phenomenal world, the monists often say, Brahma Satya Jagat Mitya. Only spirit, which they see as homogeneous, is true, and Jagat, this material world, is false. This is the result of having tried to steal and misappropriate God's property. So it's the flip side of that criminal mentality of the fruitive worker. Prabhupada says here, due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in dualities of honor and dishonor, misery and happiness, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, thinking this is my wife, this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. These are the dualities of delusion. So you take the monist who says everything is one, there is no God, this whole phenomenal world is false, and then you back up a step and you actually discover underneath the surface, once you scratch the surface, you discover somebody who is simply frustrated in their desire to enjoy the material world. There was a funny interplay between Advaitacharya and Lord Nityananda as described in the Madhya Lila, chapter 12, 192nd verse. And it's a scene where Nityananda is taking prasadam along with Lord Chaitanya in the house of Advaitacharya. And as we all know, Advaita and Nityananda used to have a lot of fun going back and forth, supposedly insulting each other, but it was really relishable give and take Leela between the devotees. And so Advaitacharya pops up and says to Lord Nityananda, Janma Kula Silachara Najani Yahara Tare Shanga Eka Pakni Bari Anachara. He says in regards to Lord Nityananda, who is also called Avaduta, very eccentric, unpredictable devotee. Advaita says, mockingly insulting Advaitacharya, and anybody who's had a really good friend, I'm sure has that experience of having a really good friend. There is an aspect of the friendship where you relish insulting the person. You're not really insulting them. In fact, you're praising them. you're honoring them. You're actually communicating to them that because they're such good friends of yours, there are no offenses taken when insulting words are spoken. It's a way of reciprocation. It's actually a way of deepening love. Even Arjuna, just see how close, how intimate Arjuna was with Krishna, that at one point he says to Krishna, he says, yeah, you and I, we sit together, sometimes even lying in the same bed, and we talk about the battles that we participate in, our heroic exploits. And Arjuna even gives a little dig at Krishna in intimate, loving friendship. He says, and yeah, we, both you and I, we tend in the telling of the story, tall story. Where did that come from? Janmadhyasya. Telling tall stories comes from Krishna. Of course, Krishna can never exaggerate because anything he does is absolutely mind-blowing. But Arjuna gets this little dig in as a aspect of their love. Krishna enjoys that. When Arjuna said, yeah, I exaggerate sometimes my heroic exploits. And, Krishna, you've been known to revert to hyperbole once in a while too. And I don't know how Krishna could possibly be hyperbolic. But this is love. This is love. And in the same way, Nityananda and Advaitacharya used to show their love by insulting, digging each other. And so Advaitacharya says to his house guest, it is not proper for householders. In other words, Lord Chaitanya is there. He's dining. He's a sannyasi. That's perfectly householders. Please come to my house. Bless my house by allowing me to serve you prasadam. But here's Nityananda. He's avaduta. He's unpredictable. He's erratic. And so Advaita is referring to this reputation of Nityananda and saying, it's not proper for householders to dine with those whose previous birth, family, character, and behavior are unknown. And so this is right out of the Srimad. Yashatma buddhi kanapi tridaha dike swadihi karacharashu bhuma ajyadehi yatirta buddhi saritena karachat janishu shabignishu seva gochara. Advaitacharya's prodding Nityananda. He says, I don't know what you do. So much of the time, nobody knows where you are. Nobody knows what you're doing. I don't know if you're legitimate. I don't know if you're transparent. And so he says, maybe, as far as I know, maybe you're in the category of those who are materialists. Or secretly, on one hand, you're making a show of spiritualism, but when you're alone, someplace where no one knows, who knows what you're doing? Maybe you're actually, if the truth be known, in the category of a gross materialist. And who are they and how are they symptomized? Yashatma buddhi kunapi tridahadike. Maybe you're in the category of those who take this body of mucus, bile, and phlegm to be the self. They identify with this material body. They call themselves Americans or Chinese or Europeans, man or woman, black, white, Eurasian, Hindu, Christians, Muslims, Jews, 6 feet tall, 5 feet tall, blue eyes, brown hair, blonde hair. Maybe you're in the category of those who are ignorant enough to think that there are these temporary material bodies made of the material energy. And they also think of the extensions of their body like children, cousins, relatives, and countrymen as also the self, the material body and the extensions of the self. In that regard, Bhuma Ijadihi, they think of the land of their birth as worshipable, and they have no higher intelligence than that of the cow or the ass. Having received this insult from Lord Nityananda, then he's going to one-up. You see what I'm saying? This is about one-upmanship. Advaitacharya has just called Nityananda a cheater, a hypocrite, and a materialist in the guise of a renunciate. And so now, coming back at him, Lord Nityananda's got to up his game. You see what I'm saying? So he gives a further insult to Advaitacharya by calling him a monist, because that's how someone becomes a monist. They go as far as they can with thinking of the body and the self and the extensions of the body, and this land of their birth is worshipable, and not understanding the difference between spirit and matter, and they just want to basically appropriate God's property as their own and always talk in terms of I and mine. And they get frustrated and then they become monists. So in order to give a higher insult back to Advaitacharya, here's what Lord Nityananda says. Heno tomara shanga more ekatre bojana najani tomara shanga kaiche haya mana. Nityananda Prabhu says to Advaita, you are a monist, you are an impersonalist, you are a Mayavadi, and now I'm eating beside you. I do not know how my mind will be affected in this way. It is said, Dayato Visham Pumsam Sangat Sanjayata Kama Kama Koda Bijayate. Sangat means association. So when you associate with people, you assume the qualities of their consciousness. So first of all, in mock back and forth, Advaita says, you could be a hypocrite, you could be a pretender, you could be, for the public, pretending to be a renunciate, someone who's mad in love with God, but we don't know where you go, who you see, what you do in private. And so Advaitacharya says, I don't really know whether you should be here at my dinner table. I don't really know how your presence here is going to affect me. See what I'm saying? Just like we're all wondering during the pandemic, do they have it? Does she have it? Does he have it? Are they infected? You see, are there droplets in the air? Is this surface contaminated? So everybody's going around with these kinds of thoughts of whether this person is a carrier of infection. So similarly, Advaita is wondering out loud in the presence and to the face of Nityananda, could you be actually a carrier of infection? Coming into my house, wearing these blue robes and being a householder yourself, eating at someone else's house in the presence of sannyasis and all. We don't really know what's going on here beneath the surface, what's invisible to our eyes. But the interesting thing is that in order to further insult and come back with a repartee to Advaitacharya, Nityananda calls him a Mayavadi or an impersonalist. This is what he says. You are such a monist, and now I'm eating beside you. I do not know how my mind will be affected in this way. And Prabhupada says, one develops his consciousness according to society and association. As Srila Nityananda Prabhu admits, a devotee should be very careful when associating with those who are not devotees. When asked by a householder devotee what the behavior of a devotee should be, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately replied, Sat Sange Tyagi E Vaishnavachara, Sri Sange Eka Ashadu, Krishna Bhakta Ara. One time Lord Chaitanya was approached by a householder devotee, and he said, what do I need to do to get right in the middle of devotional service, to get right in the middle of what Lord Sri Krishna and you want me to do? And he might have thought that Lord Chaitanya would tell him, leave your family, go on the road, take sannyas. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu simply told him this, just remain where you are, do not abandon your duties as a husband, as a father, as an employee, as an agriculturalist. Whatever you're doing, that's fine. You're not defined as a spiritualist or a materialist by your vocation or by your family situation. Whether you're a householder or whether you're renounced, there's no category in which you're considered to be well-situated and ill-situated. But the most important thing, the majority of spiritual life hinges on this one fact, asat sange tyagi. Wherever you are, give up the association of those people who are not going where you go. Those people who are dragging you down, who are full of compromise. And of course, those people most characteristically are interested in wine and women and frivolous. They're basically in the category of trying to enjoy the material energy. So the prime duty of someone who wants to advance on the path of devotional service is to watch out with whom you associate. This is called Sangha. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shri Hai. Lavamata Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Hai. Importance of associating with saintly people, whether they're householders or renunciates, is such that all the conclusion of the scriptures points to this one inevitable, inescapable conclusion. That if you associate with a sadhu in full sincerity and faith, that sadhu can set you on the road back to home, back to Godhead. So someone who's very, very careful about with whom they associate is described also in the 71st verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Vihaya kama yasavam pumam chariti nispriha nirmamo nirahankara sasantimarigachati. How is a person on the saintly path, on the devotional path, symptomized? Well, first of all, nirmamo nirahankara. They don't speak in terms of I, nor do they aspire to own anything. They are propertyless, and they are false ego-less. Not that they don't have an ego, but they don't have a false ego. They don't speak of I, nor do they speak of my property, my wife, my children, my bank balance, my company. And why don't they speak in those terms? Why are they not conditioned and tainted in that way? Because vihaya kamaya sarvam pumam chariti nispriha. They have given up all desires for sense gratification. And therefore they live free of desires, with the consequent result that they have no sense of proprietorship and they are devoid of false ego. Krishna says, this category of person alone can attain real peace. Prabhupada goes on to explain what is desirelessness in Krishna consciousness. To have no desires is not possible. It's a phantasmagoria. It's a mirage. It's not possible to rid oneself of desires, because we're originally spiritual beings created in the image of God. God is a sentient being. He himself has desires. Otherwise, why would he have created and populated both the material and the spiritual world? Why would he be seen playing a flute with a smile on his face and a peacock feather in his head? Why would he be beckoning the living beings to re-enter into intimate, loving, ecstatic, transcendental relationships with him? He is not only sentient, but he is the source of all kinds of transcendent, ecstatic desires. And so, being qualitatively one with him, we also have those kinds of desires. However, again, our theme is that while qualitatively one, there are categories within that oneness. And he is the supreme, and we are the parts. He is the Lord, and we are the servants. And we need to recognize that while there's a oneness, there's also a difference. And that throws open the door to devotional service, to liberation. And we get that cue, we get that guidance from someone who's already serving the Lord. How are we going to know that the path of transcendence is service unless we meet and intersect with someone whose heart and soul serving the Lord? And therefore, the path to liberation is through the footsteps of the great servants of the Lord. Mahat Sevam Dara Mahar Vimuktam. The door to liberation is thrown wide open in the association of the great souls. And what makes them great? Sevam. They are serving the lotus feet of their guru, who's serving their guru, who's serving their guru, right back up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So desirelessness in devotional service does not mean to be without desires. It means to desire the benefit, to desire the pleasure of Krishna. And Prabhupada gives the example of Arjuna. For himself, he had no desire. He didn't care. Nahi prapasyami mamatu yokschokam itchosam indra avapya babavasha pataninam rajam suranam arichari patam. He says, what will it avail me to fight my relatives, to win and gain a worldly kingdom greater than that of Indra, the king of the demigods, when in the absence of my friends and relatives and well-wishers? Arjuna had no desire to be a fruitive worker. He had no desire to enjoy the material energy. And because he had no desire to enjoy the material energy, he had no desire to fight, to contend with Duryodhana, who wanted to usurp the kingdom and exterminate the Pandavas. In fact, he even went so far as to say, let him kill me. It's not worth it to me to fight these soldiers over something that's temporary. This indicates that Arjuna was a high caliber, saintly person. So, although for himself he had no desire to fight, after hearing that it was Krishna's desire that Arjuna engage in the hostilities as an instrument, rid the world of the tyrannical kings, pave the way for devotional service, at that point, Arjuna subjugated his desire to Krishna's desire. Nashta mohasmi tirtam, tvat prashadam, stito shmin gata sandeha karishyasi avisobita. Arjuna says, well, in the beginning, I thought it was about me. And I thought it was about my relatives, my friends, my country, my kingship. But after hearing from you, Krishna, now I am nirmamo nirahankara. I have vihaya kama. I have given up all false desires for sense gratification, independent of and in the absence of your devotional service. And now that you have poured into me the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, now that you have made it clear to me that you want me to go ahead and fight as an instrument of your will, I am perfectly okay with that now you have revived my memory, that in fact it's not about me, it's not about my enjoying this material world, nor is it about my walking off the battlefield as a pseudo-renunciate, but it's all about you, Lord. You created everything. You empowered us. You breathed your life into us. We are here for only one life's purpose, and that purpose is to serve Krishna in any way, shape, or form that he asks for. This is the definition of desirelessness. And when we recognize that there is one common source, when we recognize that we're all qualitatively one with the Lord in terms of being spiritual beings, sons and daughters of the Father, not only human beings, not only the ones in our family, not only the members of our species, but wherever you see living beings, Vidyaya Vina Sampane, Brahma Gavina, Suni Chaiva Shapachit, Pandita Samadarshana, who is actually learned, who is actually desireless in Krishna consciousness, sees all living beings as equal and equally with equal rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Prabhupada says, Sasantim Adigajati. That is the way of peacefulness and godliness. So it's 8:15. We've spoken for 45 minutes, which is probably the maximum time that you have available. I know there are many other Vaishnavas coming online. I'm enjoying Dinabandhu taking us on his Parikram treks to all the places of Vrindavan, Madhavananda, Radhika Raman. Anyway, I've taken your time, and I appreciate. I'm looking right now at Anjali, Mr. Willie. Barsana, just a few days ago, she would jump on these and text me from Los Angeles, and she just picked up and rented a U-Haul truck and with a dolly for a car. She's here now, so offer my pranams to Barsana, who's probably within 100 feet of where I'm sitting right now. Thomas from Idaho, Sundari Priya, and so many others. Thank you so much. Last week we started out talking about one verse, the 10th verse in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto of Bhagavatam, and there was so much nectar, so much ras, juice in that one verse, we ended up spending all 3 sessions, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, on that one verse. So my expectation is that we're going to spend at least another day on this verse. Vedanti tat tam vidas tatvam yasgyanamana brahmiti panamatmi bhagavaniti sabjate, because it's a very important verse, crucial to Krishna consciousness, and very, very often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. This verse is key to understanding the difference between Mayavadis and impersonalists and the swan-like devotees of the Lord who are always engaged in his service under the direction of the previous Guru Acharyas. And we'll be back 24 hours from now. Thank you so much. Be safe. Be Krishna conscious. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.